Look, I know everyone's feeling disappointed, but the reality is we're saving our good penalties for the Champions League final. This is the ArsenalVision post-match podcast. My name's Elliot Smith, on Twitter. Yeah, you don't want to give too much away. That's the thing in sport. Once you put something on film, people can watch it and they can prepare for it. So you do some penalties that maybe aren't exactly what you mean. You have your goalkeeper act a little silly in a penalty shootout where, he's off in the car park before the penalty's been taken. It all seems very silly. But then in the Champions League final, when that final penalty flies in, and people are saying, we didn't think it was possible that Real Madrid could lose a Champions League final penalty shootout, and we're holding that big-eared trophy. Boy, oh boy, are some of the things I'm about to say on this podcast going to sound silly. Let me tell you that much. I hope you're doing okay, everyone. I'm sure many of you are not in a jocular, jovial mood at the moment, and I totally understand it. We will do our best to connect to the sadness and frustration while keeping it level-headed. That's what we do. But I think at times like this, and I know this because I listened to a bit of the Arscast this morning before getting started with this, and there's that feeling of, I just want to hear Andrew and James say what I'm thinking coming out of their mouth, right? I want to hear them perfectly summarize my emotional state, my analysis of it. And that's kind of hard to do because we all come at these challenges from a different angle. I think there are certainly things to be critical of here that we will get stuck into. The question is, how conclusive do we want to be? We'll certainly see what mood Clive is in for that. I'll say if you're not really in the analytical headspace and you're still in the emotional headspace, I definitely gave it the full emotional reaction, the instant reaction, which is what that's there for. You can listen. And Clive and I, can you imagine this? We scouted players. I know, silly, we don't sign players, but we did scout Bradley Barcola and Lee Kang in on Friday, so you can check that out. This coming Friday, we're going to do something post North London Derby with brand new technology, a sort of video analysis tool that we're going to be debuting on Friday. So that'll be there. So there's still lots of ways that we can do a lot of fun things. And the Derby is on Wednesday. So there's a chance to lift us all again, hopefully, or bury us underneath the stadium. So one of those two things is certainly possible. And here to help me decide which of those two things is going to happen and how to think about all of this is Clive. Hello, Clive.
Hello. I say
Tim,
bury.
Yeah. Tim originally was scheduled to be here for this pod, then got a notification that he had a doctor's appointment. I honestly think he probably scheduled a colonoscopy at full time of the FA Cup side just to get out of having to do this. Paul celebrated his birthday over the weekend, so a very, very happy birthday to Paul, who was given the gift of a cup exit by the club that he loves. So thanks for nothing. Clive, I'm going to start with a really pointed and specific question.
Go.
How are you doing with all of this at the moment?
Mate, I got to be honest here. I sat there in my seat, and from the moment Odegaard missed the penalty, it was like impending doom. Just sat there. I have to apologise to my season ticket mate, Trev. I didn't speak to him. I just had my head in my hands it felt like ages. You're just waiting for what you knew was coming. Like sometimes when you walk into a football ground, you can feel the energy. You can feel it's not your day. I always remember the first time it's happened to me, Copenhagen, 94, walked into that stadium, and basically I knew we were in that game. I just knew it. We had all three sides of the ground. I knew we were in that game. The energy from the crowd just took over. I looked at Manchester United, a team that just grew with energy as the game went on. They weren't great, but there was energy from their crowd pushing their team along, and we were just getting more and more despondent. And I've never seen something more in the post, and I can't describe it. It's like an intangible. Do you know what I mean? An intangible of life and football. It's never seen something more in the post than what we saw yesterday. And so I was absolutely devastated. I flicked onto my phone. I started to walk into Finsbury Park. I started to see eruptions online, and I thought, you know what, mate? Keep your head down. Save it for the podcast. Coming with the same head, and that's what I've done today.
Yeah, and I think the online experience, this is where it's really unhelpful. There are times, and I don't want to be one of these people that's like, oh, social media is destroying the world, blah, blah. Like, social media has given me friendships and relationships and connection to things that I never would have had without it. There are times, though, where I think it does things to us. I'm not going to make this a meta commentary about social media, but hear me out because I think this is relevant. You can go online in the wake of something like this, and the response is so bombastic, so extreme, that it can sometimes pull you more to the extremes
Yeah.
as you find yourself normalizing reactions that are outsized. Do you see what I'm saying? So instead of trying to contextualize this, and this is bad, and we'll get to all the reasons it's bad, I think then it can almost, sort of talking about people being radicalized online, it can shift you into thinking, oh, an outsized, outraged reaction is actually the appropriate reaction to this. And so I tried to stay off it to the extent I can. Everybody needs to vent, though. And so when you go to an environment where everybody is venting, inevitably it just turns into a cesspit pretty quickly. I will say this. I think, tell me if this makes sense to you, Clive. One of the things that I've loved about the Arteta era, especially over the last few seasons, is that we've moved away from an era we used to refer to as the banter era.
Yeah.
We've started to do things that I feel really proud of. We win big games. We score goals. We don't concede stupid ones. We've moved past the era of doing things that you just shake your head and say, how did that happen? And this had echoes of banter era type stuff. If you think about the worst Manchester United, maybe in their modern history, coming to the Emirates and getting sent down to 10 men, and we're already injured, and our only other center forward does his knee, and we're missing chances left and right, and our captain misses a penalty, and we lose in a penalty shootout. Like, this feels like it's anachronistic. Like, it's a moment from a previous era, and it hurts because it feels familiar, but familiar to something that felt left behind. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, you know what, mate? You say it's from a previous era. I think it's just we do this every now and again. We do. Do you remember? I remember Sporting Lisbon at home in the Europa League.
Yeah.
Same. We were more or less a dominant team. We didn't quite do our job. They scored a goal. We had two major injuries in that game. Mm-hmm. When we lost Saliba and Tomiyasu in that game. Mm-hmm. We put a lot of effort in. We were trying to save people for the league. We put a lot of effort in. We go out on penalties. And you think to yourself, okay, we've expended a load of energy. We've gone to extra time on penalties. We've got knocked out. And we lost our centre-half and our centre-half cover in one game. And you look at the rest of the season and think, oh my goodness. And here we are 2 years or so later. It's the first thing that came to my mind. I thought, oh my goodness, we have expended loads of energy. We got Spurs on the Wednesday. We've lost our centre forward that was just showing a little bit of form on the right wing and has scored a few goals recently. And I'm thinking we've probably got a solution. If we'd have won that game, I'd be saying to Elliot, I think Jesus is the one for the right-hand side, and then that seems like a bad one. I've got nothing more than what we see online, Elliot. And I look at it now, and I look at how devastated people were, not just in the stands, but on the pitch. And I'll just share something with you. At the final whistle, I've never seen such a rush for the doors, to get out of there. I mean, you just wanted away because by being in there, you were hurting even more. Do you know what I mean? And it's one of my saddest journeys out. It was, and I think it's not just for what happened, because when you take 49 shots in 2 games and score 1 goal, I don't think it's hard to see what's going wrong, right? It's the exterior stuff around it that I think started to seep into our minds. Yeah. And we get ourselves into these spirals every now and again, and we're in one. We are right in one.
I want to get into the game a bit. Before I do that, I will say, though, if you look at some of these things, I mean, the FA Cup last season, we outplayed Liverpool. We didn't finish our chances. They did, and we got knocked out. This team, for all the goals it scored, and I am aware of them because I have used them as a reminder of how good we are and how good our attack is. And our attack works functionally. It creates the chances. It gets the goals. But this team has been held to 0 or 1 more times than you'd expect an elite team to do. And if you look at where quote unquote failures have happened here, Clive, it is a little hard. And I understand why fans are starting to get frustrated. It is hard to see us falling short in things repeatedly due to a perceived lack of top-end attacking talent.
Yeah.
And there has been a clear decision around squad building that has worked. It got us from a distant, not even a shout for being one of the best teams in the league, a mid-table mediocrity, back to the top of the table, back to the Champions League, back to actually becoming favorites for the league. But to get over the line, that's where I think the lack of the top end attacking talent recruitment has popped up. And unfortunately, we've had what right now looks like a bit of a swing and a miss summer, in the summer when, of course, we wind up getting injuries. Of course, the attackers aren't firing at their top level. And people, understandably, Clive, I think, feel that we left it too late to address an area that has been kind of shouting out at us for high-end reinforcements for a little while now.
Yeah, let's just do the attack thing first rather than the summer, because we can come back to that a little bit later. I think I have this feeling that we sometimes make do in attack, right? So we sort of move people around. We move Kai from midfield up front. we sort of make do. Trossard can play in a number of positions. So does Jesus. You know, we bring in Sterling on loan. We don't quite have the same ambition in those areas to really go one step further, right? So sometimes you need a clarity of youth. Elliot. I said to my son, we were just debating, and he said something to me. You know what he said? He said, "Dad, we're Arsenal Football Club, and we have not got one out-and-out centre forward."
Yeah.
And I thought, you know what, mate? Clive, stop talking rubbish. He's right. We're Arsenal Football Club, and we don't have that profile in our squad. We have people. We do things collectively. We really do things collectively. When we score collectively. When we miss collectively. You know, we don't. It's not just our attackers that are missing. In fact, our defenders show more desire than our attackers to score. That's why we look like a set piece team, right? We don't have the desire to score. We don't have that thing that says, I'm going out there today. I don't care about my past numbers. I don't care about my involvement. I care about getting a goal. And if one that cares about getting a goal is probably Gabriel. He has the most desire to score. And it's something that we don't have. But it's something that we've chosen. We've chosen this route, Elliot. We've chosen this collective route. We scored the most goals ever last year. And we didn't have a main goal scorer in that group. We do things collectively, but the problem is when we fail, we seem to have this group mentality failure. I mean, I'm not picking on him because we all know the person that who's our highest paid player, etc., missed some chances as well. But Declan Rice is a mentality guy. He misses a header in the 6-yard box, and that's sort of thing that we sort of don't expect to see. You know, we're missing headers from all different types of people and chances from all different types of people that are clear, big opportunities. So it means collectively we've been weighed down by our lack of execution. You know, and it's we have to do better. There's no excuses. We have to do better.
Yeah, I do think all the great teams have a great goal scorer, a great attacker. You know, we have the Ljungberg. We don't have the Henry. Do we have the Perez? We may have the Perez, but we don't have the Henry. You know, do we? I mean, to look at Liverpool, do we have Gakpos and Jotas and Nunez's for days? But do we have Salah? Well, the one who's supposed to be is out injured right now.
Yeah, exactly.
And you know, I do want to say, I think, I mean, Pep Guardiola is considered by most the best coach currently in the world and maybe of all time. I think there are a lot of people that would say that. Pep Guardiola has an injury crisis. He currently sits 6th in the Premier League and 22nd in the Champions League. Okay? From the outside looking in, no one's going, well, Pep doesn't know what he's doing, or they've recruited, you know, now they're, of course, everything's up for re-examination with City. But but really, it's injuries, probably, principally, that have derailed their season so far. And if they get fit, does anyone think they're not going to go on an almighty run? I just want to ask anybody who has serious doubts about Arsenal right now, and I have them myself, if we were 100% fit tomorrow, what do you think we would look like and how do you think we would play? Because I still have a pretty clear sense of what I think. And it aligns pretty much to what I thought in the summer. Now, having said that, we have not insulated ourselves from injuries in the places, in the ways we should have. But just to put in perspective how tough this is, this kind of blew my mind. I was thinking about this. Miles Lewis-Skelly started yesterday. No one batted an eyelash at that. No one, that isn't a talking point. No one's going, oh, Miles Lewis-Skelly started a cup tie against. Of course he started. He's Miles Lewis-Skelly. Yeah, he could start left back. He has an 18-year-old central midfielder starting in a position where going into the season, you wouldn't have had him as an option on the depth chart. If you had to write one of those, those images you'll see sometimes going around online where you see the starter and then under the starter, the backup, and then under the backup. He wouldn't have even been there. Now he's starting at left back for us. That's great. We found him. But it's a reminder of how much we are tinkering and fixing and working around. And, Jesus, who might be our striker, is starting on the right wing. Because you know what? If Kai and Jesus don't both have to start today or yesterday or whatever it was, then maybe Jesus isn't out there getting injured. Right? So it is a reality. I'll give you a quick analogy and then we'll get into the game a bit. But, all right, please bear with me. I know nobody wants to hear about the NFL, but this is important from an analogy standpoint. I was watching the Packers playoff game. Okay.
Yeah, me too.
Watching the Packers playoff game against the Eagles. And the Packers wide receivers are players kind of like wingers in football or even a striker. They make the big dynamic plays, right? That break the games open. And one of their best wide receivers did his ACL about a week ago. And then they get into this game and another wide receiver suffers a terrible concussion. He's out. And then another wide receiver gets knocked out. And then their lineman gets knocked out. Now, I have no rooting interest in this game at all. I literally couldn't care less which one of these teams won. And as I'm watching the game, I found myself going, well, they're done. You don't overcome those injuries. They're done. As someone who didn't have a rooting interest, I was prepared to say that. Online, if you look at Packers fans, you'll see people questioning the quarterback. You'll see people questioning the coaching and the play calling. But for me, as someone who had perspective, I was like, no, you don't overcome those injuries. It's that simple. And I do wonder, Clive, if because it is unsatisfying, and it is deeply unsatisfying, to say, well, we just don't have the players right now. We're shagged out and we don't have the players. Because that's deeply unsatisfying, there's going to be a search for other answers where we can assign responsibility. And we want someone to be responsible for this other than just, it's not our season. It's not our season is not good analysis, and it's not rewarding analysis. So are you able to draw some conclusions and also step back and be like, we're doing this with arms and legs tied behind our back? And a bit of it is just that simple,
So I can speak my own truth, right? So about 2-3 weeks ago, I sort of realised the schedule ahead, and I was concerned. I've always been concerned about Arsenal's ability to have multiple games in a week over many, many weeks, particularly over 4 competitions, because we've never done it. I've never seen the evidence of Arsenal being able to manage 4 competitions effectively without blowing up, right? So that worried me. Then obviously the sort of fatigue and health of the team really worried me. And I thought, and the line, I've said it before, I'm going to say it again, listener. So we had 3 games last January. This January we have 9 games. That to me is a problem for this squad where it is right now, right? So that always worried me. So I was in my own washing machine. I was in my own downward spiral just based on that. So I'm trying to ignore my gut feel and hoping we're going to win these games, while this underlying current of, oh my God, we could be in a bit of trouble here. And then I ask myself a question. I step back and say to myself, did we evolve ourselves attacking wise enough in the summer? Because we protected our floor maybe as a squad, but did we evolve attacking wise? And why evolution is important, everyone's looking at us. We scored loads of goals, we've won loads of games, we barely lost a game. Don't you think we're being looked at? Have we evolved? Did we just roll out the same front 3 with 3 behind them that were of better quality than the 3 behind them last season, and just hope that everyone's going to progress, everyone's going to develop, and everyone's going to stay fit? And it feels to me that's what I expected it. Come on, we never saw an Odegaard 10-weeker coming up or a Saka 3-monther coming up. I expected it. I expected it to roll on. We sort of repaired Kai and he's started to do well. I expect that to continue. You're repaired now. Continue. Right, Jesus, you'll find your way. Trossard, you always score. You'll keep doing it. Martinelli, you're still young. You'll still progress. But not all of those things have happened. If they have happened, they've happened in spurts. And so we haven't developed offensively. We haven't evolved. We just haven't evolved. And people are looking at us closely and they know where to stop us. We still score, but we have a few nils. So how do we cover the gap? We go to set pieces that controls the game, and we can find a way to coach the gap. I ask myself a question. Why are we coaching the gap? If we have the ability to react, if we don't have the ability to react, that concerns me. And one of the things why we're supporters, right? So I'm an Arsenal supporter. We're 2 days away from Spurs. And let me tell you something. The disunity online is breaking my heart because we've got Spurs coming up. And that's not how we need to be. We don't need to be together to play against them, right? But I feel strongly that we should be asked. What worries me, Elliot, what worries me the most, sorry, mate, is that everything we've done over the last 2-3 years, I felt an absolute alignment within the club. And there's been a couple of things that happened this year that make me question if that's in place. And that's a question I don't want to ask. I don't want to ask it because the things that are not quite right, personnel-wise and health-wise, need to be recovered. And we haven't done it yet. So the questions that are being asked, if they're not being asked out loud by people who are louder than me, I'm asking them inside. Are we really progressing in those areas as much as we should do? And I can't say that we are at the moment. I just can't.
Yeah, and to be clear, I think that there's some really big problems at the moment, and I just don't know how to think about them in terms of whether they are structural problems that need to be fixed through sort of root and branch change, both with tactics and talent, or not. I will say I think there's some really bad, look, I'm not going to be a hypocrite. I think it's wonderful that things like XG have gone mainstream because I think the more people try to be data literate, the more well-rounded our views can be. But I think there's some bad use of it now where people point to the XG as if that solves the argument. Hey, look at the XG. We were unlucky. That's not how this works. First of all, data scientists will tell you XG was not designed to be a one-game analysis tool. It was designed to be a large sample size tool to give you a sense of trends and overall performance levels. Fundamentally, if you want to use XG, go look at what we produced 11v11 yesterday. It's not pretty. I think it was 0.2. Let's not forget also, if you take the penalty out, suddenly the XG starts to look even less good. And oh, by the way, where is this XG coming from? Crosses, 45 crosses. I do think, why are we not putting the ball in the back of the net? When the way you create chances is panicked, chaotic moments of the ball floating into the box when you're desperately trying to save a cup tie, the stress level is higher, the chaos is higher, there's more variability to what's going to happen. We get a goal from our center back slamming a volley into a group of players and it shanks into the net. Thank God. Great. But if you look at how all these other chances are created, it's not like the Bruno Fernandes chance. It's not a clear counter cut back into the box, good player striding onto it, in stride.
That was game state related, wasn't it, really, Elliot?
No, of course. But what I'm saying is a lot of our chance creation is crosses, is box chaos, and of course, if you're facing low blocks, you're going to have to do some of that.
Yeah. So can we talk that? Yeah. Can we talk that through? I think it's because there's a criticism out there. Just generally, we look the same because we dominate teams, and so we push them back, and so recreating the same type of chances. We have the same type of patterns. So this is almost by design. But then you ask yourself a question: have we got the stop and start explosive athletes in wide areas to really take advantage of that? Well, we do, and we don't. We don't have enough. We don't have enough explosion and box dominance to be that team, right? So we're almost like a team that's sort of quite an all-round team without specifics in these. And so Bruno's goal, unbelievable, right? I did see that today, and my goodness, he has caught that perfectly and curled it around Timber. And oh my God, what a great goal that is. How was that caused, Eddie? It's not a high-quality chance. It's caused by a crossfield diagonal by Harry Maguire. We lose the first header. We mess up the second header and fall over. And then they create a 3-on-2 or 2-on-3, I'm not sure exact numbers, and they slot it. That's a counter-attack football based off our mistakes.
Yeah.
Right?
Can I say one thing just real quick, and then I'll turn it back over?
Yeah.
My point isn't we should be creating that kind of chance because that chance comes from game state and how we're playing versus how they're playing. I get that.
Correct.
What I'm saying is that kind of chance, if you want to do XG analysis, that kind of chance falling to that player in that space is very different from a sea of bodies and it's 6 yards out and you're swinging your leg out. You know what I mean? I'm saying, we created XG and we create chances in the box, but it's a lot more, I think, chaos and congestion and crowded bodies and, instant having a reaction. Like if you look at the chances Kai's missed in the last 2 games, one is a header from a deflected cross where he's reacting to a deflection in real time. And the other is a point blank miss. And it's a terrible miss, but it's from a sea of bodies in the box. It finds its way to him. He's not sure if he's handled it. He's tried to corral, like,
He handled it.
And I think he did too. None of this is me defending the misses. It's me saying there's a difference between striding onto the ball and sweeping your leg in rhythm versus what we create, which is a lot of, I think, sort of similar chaos, ball bouncing around the box type chances,
Yeah, we played, in the end of that game after we scored, we literally played the game that Harry Maguire and Elliot want. They want to be in their box narrow and heading out aeroplanes.
Martinelli put in 14 crosses in this game, none completed. Now, I think he put in some good crosses, but the point is 14 crosses. If you ask Maguire and De Ligt, what do you want happening? And Banter, by the way, who was brilliant.
Yeah.
They probably would have said, yeah, firing crosses. We'll take our risk with that.
So the criticism I have is when we do get into the edge, we get to the areas and we come back to the edge of the area. Sometimes our first touches were sloppy. We should be opening ourselves out for shots at the edge of the area a little bit more. I think sometimes we clip the ball in when there's a shooting opportunity. We should take that shot. Don't be afraid to take the shot. Be accountable. I'm looking at Odegaard and Martinelli primarily there, but my memory could be sketchy. So please don't take that as an individual criticism. It's just
probably a Merino question there too.
Yeah, Merino had a shot that was slow. He got blocked. He was going towards the goal, but he looked slow to me, like to get out of his feet. Mm-hmm. And so I'm now looking at reasons to get better quality chances because we played into our hands a little bit. There was a feeling when I was watching the game. I'm thinking, okay, we need to be a bit quicker in our attack. We were on occasions. Some of our free kicks, put the ball down, play, to get them while they're not in shape. But then we didn't quite have the bravery on occasion. Didn't quite have the ability to really make it count. So I think if you sit here and I'm looking, sometimes you look at data, Elliot, and I sometimes go here when we've had a bad moment to see if I can get any sort of good feelings out of it. Mm. And I look at it and they're giving me all the feelings that we should have won that game 3 or 4. But I have to say, we're lacking that final conviction touch. We're lacking it in so many things. We're lacking it. And when we don't do this, we say the same things. We need a striker. We need a half chance taker. We need somebody who can do something extraordinary that makes everything else look okay. Right? If we score 3 goals in that game, you look at our data and you look at everything, what a performance that would be. But we haven't. And now we're questioning things. We're questioning squad building. We're questioning the summer. We're questioning, for me, I think we're questioning our overall collective mentality under pressure. That's what I'm questioning. And someone needs to step up. And that's the game, right? This is elite sport. Elite sport, elite remuneration, elite environment. Someone needs to step up. And they know it. And it just needs to happen real quick.
And look, we dominate games, but I do think because we lack the really high-end elite attacking talent, we wind up being comfortable controlling games without hurting opposition. And here's the thing. If you want to point to the data and say, oh, we should have won this game, I'm here for it. And by the way, not every chance we created was the ball bouncing around the box. Jorginho played in Rice brilliantly. Rice, very unlucky not to score. Banter down low to his left, well saved. Rice had a header where could he do better? He's rising a little bit late.
Oh, yes.
He should do better. Okay, fine. That's a beautiful cross, a clear chance. By the way, I think Rice made a big difference in that left half space and pocket. He made some of those darting runs, and Jorginho was able to find him a few times. So by the way, Kai gets played in. One of the things I'm talking about, right, where you're playing football along the ground, and he slides it across. And credit to, is it De Ligt who clears it off the line before Leo can? That's brilliantly done. So a bit unlucky, but you don't get to throw a half of football away and then complain that you couldn't rescue it late. And what I mean is, if you look at the first half of this game, Clive, we had 60% possession. Great. All the field tilt, right? Great. Yep. That's great. Here's what we did with that. 4 shots, 0.16 expected goals. So if you want to say we created enough to win this game and Odegaard should bury his penalty, of course. But someone has to, and I'm here to do this, point to the first half and say we basically didn't try to win the game in the first half. And then we wanted to try to win it later and the ball didn't go in. But what about that first half, Clive? Because that, to me, that first half, I think is indicative of what we're talking about, which is it's all well and good to switch on when you're 1-0 down or when they're down to 10 men. But there were 45 minutes of this game where we basically were just comfortable to have the ball. And I do see us doing that. And I don't know if that's because we're just sort of out of ideas in the final third or what. But what do you think of a first half that I think you could rightly point to as essentially a thrown away half of football in some respects?
Yeah, someone said to me it felt like we were playing for penalties in the first half. That's what it felt like.
Yep.
And it was a throwaway comment, but there's a hint of truth in that somewhere. And hey, look, in the game, I'll be honest with you, in the game, I'm just happy we were dominating. Because I thought Man United played really well against Liverpool. I expected
they
them to
were shit, by the way.
Well,
they
in this
were
game, yeah,
dog
so
shit.
I thought against Liverpool, I thought they were excellent, and I thought, you know what, we're in for something here, and so I'm pleased. I'm sitting there, and I'm saying, I'm pleased we're just dominating. I'm pleased it's up the other end of the pitch. I can't see it. Stay up there, lads. Do what you like. Just stay up there. See, and eventually they'll do something stupid and we'll score. I watched their keeper against Spurs I think in the League Cup, and he got beat from a corner by Son. I mean, he was just not very good at all. I'm thinking he's going to throw one in any minute, right? Of course he didn't, right? So, and so I'm thinking we're going to be fine. Did we have the right level of intensity? You could probably say no. Did we have the right level of talent? Let's ask ourselves the questions. Did we have the right level of the talent in the attacking areas to really move them around? And I would have to say we didn't. Not enough of it was coming out. Not enough of it was coming out. And we're slowly, but when you have these moments, you see what you don't have. And we just didn't have the ability to go past people and really collapse people in and really get a high quality chance. We were very much pass-centric, pattern-centric, third man runs, one-on-ones Martinelli, cross, clearance, cross, clear for a corner, take your time over the corners, momentum goes out of the game, they clear the corner, they get a boost because set pieces now are not just set pieces, they're almost like half penalties. So they get a boost from seeing off a corner. So we're lifting them when we don't score from one. And you think about the first half, our set pieces, we didn't have our two takers on the pitch, in Rice and Saka, because it makes a huge difference. Getting a corner and getting a corner with Rice and Saka on the pitch are two different things. The quality is different. And the fact I'm talking about corners tells me where we've evolved to, Elliot. And I shouldn't be talking about this too much, but we are, right? Because that's where we've evolved to offensively, and it's not really the evolution that we expected.
Yeah, Clive, look, I look at a first half where we produced 4 shots, none on target, almost no expected goals, where we had 60% of the ball but didn't really hurt them. And in fact, by the way, of that 0.16 expected goals that we created in the first half, which is not great, 0.07 from open play, 0.09 from set plays. So again, there's that reliance, even for that limited amount. And I think there's a lot of ways that we can diagnose this. But one thing that I want to ask you about is Mikel Merino, because it's another performance where it felt like the game passed him by, and there was a stat that was going around at halftime. In the first half, we played 205 accurate passes. He was responsible for 7 of them. He finishes the game, I think, with 14 passes at 62% or whatever it is. And, I don't want to lay that all at his feet, by the way. That's not remotely my point, but the summer keeps coming back into focus as Calafiori now out again, injured, a really unfortunate situation with a player we both think is very talented, very young, and has a very bright future, but did arrive with some injury concerns. Raheem Sterling, who we'll get to in a bit, we all understand the circumstance there. So the one player we signed that's like prime age, reasonable CV, the theory of the case is that he's going to add some attacking something to the left-hand side, whether that's through box crashing or a quicker play or whatever it is. And everybody's sort of squinting to see it with this player right now because he's the hope, right? The hope was maybe this is a thing that will improve the attack in the absence of a really powerful forward signing. And it's just another game where I'm struggling to see the argument, essentially. So do you have any thoughts on maybe his performance and what we're trying to do with him? Because the whole left-hand side, aside from Miles Lewis-Skelly, by the way, who again I think was good, it doesn't seem to work. It still doesn't seem to work. It never seems to work.
Yeah, let's talk about the evolution on this side, right? So obviously there was a period when we bought Kai. We bought him as primarily a midfielder that can play up front. Right? Mm-hmm. That seemed to be the brief. He looked better up front. So what did we do? We moved him up front and had a fantastic 2024 and decided in the summer we're going to probably replace Kai, the original Kai. Do you see what I mean? By having somebody left-footed that can go into the box. Right. This is the moment, really. Do you say, you have a choice. Do you say, you know what, I still like Kai being the space invader, the second line of attack coming in late, and I'm going to invest in a centre-forward position. But I also chose to reinvest in midfield. And so, at the time, hands up, I thought, well, you know what, Thomas Partey's got injury record. Maybe they want to make sure they have an insurance policy there. And I could see it. When we stopped scoring, I can't see it. Do you know what I mean? And that's the truth of it. And that is very much captain hindsight stuff. When we stop scoring, I don't see it as much. And then when you think to yourself, come back to the attacking group again, what did we really do here? We really just added Sterling to the attacking group. A 29-year-old on loan, career resurrection, 100 grand a week. That's what we added to the attacking group. And so we know this group. We know they can flow. We also know they can freeze. And we're frozen at the moment. We're frozen. So people are quite right to ask the question. And I said it, I'm going to say it again, sorry for repeating myself. Did we evolve in this space enough? And Merino is suffering for this now because we're looking at our 4 signings. We made Raya permanent. Calafiori that most people like. I don't know his injury. Is it a bad one? I haven't read anything, so I don't know if it's a bad one or not. But we all like him, and when he plays well, but he keeps missing games. And so the question is about having injury-prone players in the squad. He's up there now. Merino, he's not answering any of our dreams right now regarding attacking play. And then obviously Kai's hit a flat spot, and he's not answering our execution dreams when it comes to attacking play. Sometimes it's very simple sometimes. Football analysis isn't that complicated. Just look at the group. We expected some progression and we've got some regression. And now we have to react. And that's the job, right? We have to react, and I'm watching closely.
Yeah, and we've said it before in this pod, we'll probably say it again. It is frustrating that a club that briefed after the Bayern tie last season, that we are missing that killer that can add our ability to win those close games at the top level, didn't go get that done. Now, do I think that's because we didn't want to or didn't try to? I don't think that's the case. We've also, in the interest of fairness, we've also covered a number of times that none of the big clubs seem to execute on a strategy of getting forwards. But I will say this, there's a saying in finance, I can't remember if it's Carl Munger or whoever it was, but sort of like when the market is scared, be a buyer. And when the market is when there's market is fearful, be a buyer. When the market is confident, be a seller or whatever. Like, it's the idea that it's in these tough markets where the big clubs aren't finding the guy that maybe you can find the thing, that you're able to go get because you're sharper, you're smarter, you know where to take the gamble. The point is we didn't get it done. And as is typical, when you don't quite get the one thing done you needed to get done, what do you say? You say, you know what? We didn't quite get the guy we wanted, but if we just get a little bit of injury luck, we can get away with it.
Yep.
And you didn't get away. You ever done that? You ever tell that one small lie and you're like, well, as long as I don't get caught with this one thing, I'll get away with that one small lie. Or that one thing you've done wrong at work, and you're like, well, as long as all these things don't go wrong, it won't come back to bite me. And every time, it's like in the movie, right? Every time, they're like, oh, I hid the murder weapon in the recycle bin. And it's like, as long as no one goes through the recycle bin, I'm fine. And then, the
it's
point
like
is,
the monster chasing after the girl. And you're saying, as long as she doesn't twist her ankle and fall, she'll get away. What does she do? Twist her ankle and fall.
Yeah, you're like, why does the bad guy never run? He always walks because the good guy's gonna fall in a hole or something. Exactly. And like. That's what it feels like. We didn't get the business done that we needed to in the attack. We still probably had enough to go on and compete for the title, compete for everything.
Yeah.
But the one area of the pitch where we did roll the dice a bit, we rolled snake eyes. And it is what it is. I think I think the reason Merino's probably coming in for more criticism, certainly from me, I confess, is that profile. This is where the frustration starts to boil over. And I kind of get it, Clive. There's become this meme of, Mikel would rather win duels than score goals, right? You know what I mean? All the bad faith arguments, and they are bad faith. We're too good for Mikel to just care about duel winning. We broke our goal scoring record in consecutive seasons. But I do think that there's been a reluctance to go for that technical fantasy player, that high level technique player, my Eze shout for left 8, whatever it is. And I do think people look at Merino as sort of the the paragon of the apotheosis of Mikel Arteta's attacking midfielder guy. He's mature. He's got broad shoulders. He's tall. He wins a lot of duels. But then we watch him trying to manipulate the ball and do things and make himself available and receive passes, and he's not doing those things. And the frustration spills over. And I think it is frustration that, while I don't think it is entirely fair, I get it, because if you ignore adding top end talent at that part of the pitch long enough, and then goal scoring becomes an issue, people aren't going to want to hear about XG or hear about injuries. They're going to say none of those things would be a problem if you'd just gone out and gotten the guy that we've all wanted to go get.
Yeah,
Question is, who is that guy?
And it is. I'm trying to be balanced here, because Merino's someone I think is okay. I wasn't shouting to rooftops, but when someone's here, I support them, right? So, but if you put him in a team like he was in Spain's team with Nico Williams and Yamal on the wings, and you have someone who's a second midfielder there behind Dani Olmo, you're thinking, well, you know what? Next to Rodri, he looks absolutely fine. He makes them solid, or etc., and they're scoring goals when they feel like it. When we don't have that level of attack, then we're asking questions. And you can even look at the Spain team. There were two midfielders in Fabian Ruiz and Merino, and Mikel prefers a Merino. Elliot, I think you might fancy a Fabian Ruiz. He's a little bit more creative, a little bit more, and that's a discussion to have. That's a choice that we made. And if you want to criticise the manager for that, feel free. Let's just caveat this, by the way. The manager's accountable for everything. Can we just say it? We're just discussing the what's happening and why it's happened, etc., etc. So the manager maybe could have chosen another style of player. I know that there are players that you like and I like, but he went this way. If you go this way, you better be scoring goals, and we haven't, right? So that means that player's open to criticism, despite his rough start with injury, etc. He's still a yard slow to get to the ball. I watched it closely yesterday. He's just a yard off, and that may get better. He's got power to score. He has. It could come back. But at this moment in time, we need a little bit more guile. In my opinion, a little bit more ball dominance and guile, and we're not getting it. So that's the issue.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was night and day when Rice came on in that position. I don't think anyone thinks Rice is a twinkle toes 8, but he just had more drive to get into the box. I mean, he was doing things on the ball that we needed done. And, you can't have it both ways. If you say, oh, well, you're being unfair to Merino because he was brought in to be an option in midfield, a sort of midfield squad player, a high-level midfield squad player to bridge the gap to MLS and Nwaneri coming in. If you want to say that, even if I am not sure that he's that or not, then you'd say, okay, well, then our only real attacking signing was a loan for Sterling and a squad player midfielder. The alternative is you say, well, the thing we bought where we thought it could influence our attack more is Merino, who's in the prime of his career and could be more of a final third dominant player in the mold of what we thought Kai would do, but now Kai can stay exclusively at center forward. Well, that theory of the case hasn't come to fruition either. So you're sort of stuck between two stalls there. I think two game things I want to ask you about. One is the Martinelli goal. He takes it brilliantly. It's good play between Sterling and Odegaard, and it falls to Martinelli. Do you think that should, this is a rules interpretation thing. I think it's offside, but what do you think?
I thought it was offside because on the original pass forward, he was offside. The fact that Maguire played it, he wasn't. If Maguire played
play it
first,
or it deflect off him?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure, Elliot. I know where you're going with this. So, but to me, I accepted the offside. I don't think Arsenal people could complain about the referee on this day. I thought he gave us a soft penalty.
We got all the big calls,
we're shouting loud when we don't get the calls. We need to shout loud.
Can I hold you on that? Do you think it's a penalty?
I thought it was. I think it was 70-30 against being a penalty. Now I've seen it in the ground, mate. Definite penalty as far as I was concerned. But I'm biased and one-eyed. And then when I saw it back, I thought, mate, if that happened against me, I'd be upset. But the problem is, I saw a penalty the week before at Brighton, which I didn't think was a penalty, and João Pedro didn't care. He just stuck it in the net and ran off to the crowd. If we
Put it this way, we're overdue a 30-70 in our favor.
Yeah, exactly. If we get a break, take it. Don't give them justice calls to make. Do you know what I mean? Take it and run away and just say, I didn't see it. I wasn't sure. Do the press conference and get in your car. That's what we should have done, but we didn't do our job.
the irony of it is it only becomes a penalty because Kai doesn't control the ball as well as he should, I think, in a tight space.
He should go to his left foot. He should go to his left foot. And this is what I'm talking about, the edge of the area. Again, I'm not going to tell Kai Havertz how to shoot, but for me, the ball comes onto his left foot. He should be first touch out your feet, not back to your weak side. That's just my feeling, right? So, that's indicative of some of our sloppy touches around the edge of the area, which is affecting the quality of our shot taking. It really is. If you want to get detailed.
So I gotta ask you then. I get that there's a hierarchy in the group. Sometimes, pardon my language, fuck the hierarchy. Try to win football matches. I get that Martin Odegaard is a penalty taker absent Bukayo Saka. There is no penalty taker in our squad, Saka included. There is no penalty taker better than Jorginho. And he's on that pitch.
Yeah.
And this is being wise after the fact. I totally get it. But I don't think there should be a hierarchy. I think there should be who's best at this thing. And the best player to take that penalty is Jorginho. And I don't understand why. I do understand. Saying I don't understand is stupidity. And that is one of my contributions here at the ArsenalVision podcast. But Clive, I found myself in that moment saying he better score this because there's a better penalty taker on the pitch. That's what I felt in that moment.
Well, people, they listen to us and we're always very honest about our opinions and how we feel. When I'm watching that, I'm thinking, I'm going to get killed for this. But I'm thinking Havertz would be the best option to take the penalty. Right, that's what I'm thinking.
Come on.
That's what I was thinking. I'm thinking he'll be the best option for the penalty, or it's going to be Odegaard. And I'd forgotten Jorginho. Right, so when I saw Odegaard go up for it, I thought, well, that's what I expected. It's going to be him or Havertz, and I'm not really worried either one. And as the game went on, and obviously Havertz's confidence went down even more. The more chances he missed, it's like that sounds silly now, but that's what I was thinking at the time. And then I thought, crikey, Jorginho was on the pitch. He probably kept on the pitch during extra time so that he would take a penalty, and of course gets injured during extra time, and we miss the chance for him to take one in the shootout. So who knows what will happen there? So yeah, that's a good shout. You're not the first one to say it to me, but Odegaard. There are lots of people that fancied Odegaard to take a penalty ahead of Saka. Because they think his technique is sometimes better. If Saka's on the pitch, we'd like to think we scored that penalty, right? But it's all if buts and maybes.
Looks like, and according to Transfermarkt, he has 42 penalties scored in his whole career across all competitions and 8 missed.
Who are we talking about?
Jorginho. Now, if that's the case, some quick math on that is...
You do math live on the podcast again?
84%. So 84% is better than average, but it's certainly not what I would have thought in terms of he's a sure thing. I mean, I tend to think of him as being a penalty specialist, but
he's moved away from it too. He's moved away from it of late. He doesn't really. For us, he's not in the room, right? So he hasn't taken one for a while. But you're not the only one to say that to me that he should have taken it.
And like I said, being wise after the fact, any issues with the Odegaard penalty? What I would say is, it's right in the corner. It's an excellent save. It's just not struck with pace. It's a slower shot, but it's very, very accurate, and Banter gets down really, really well, I thought.
Yeah, he made 2 penalty saves, without a doubt. They're right in the corner. Kai's one even more in the corner, right? So, and he got down to it. Now, my only criticism would be he saved one down to that corner in the game. Do you need to go back there again to test him out? Do you know what I mean? But hey, look, I've never done it before, so. Hey, look, 2 good saves, not misses. And that's how I'd look at it.
I want to talk about the Jesus injury a bit, some of the subs and options and the way we played out the game. And I want to look ahead to the derby, and I want to just sort of talk about the January window as well. So there's still a lot to get to, but I think we can lighten the mood by talking about your privates. Everybody cool with that? I think that's the right thing to do. Look, at any given moment, I may talk about shaving your privates. That's me. If you're around me and you're like, hey, I'm going to hang out with Elliot, what are we going to talk about? Could be anything, but it could be shaving your privates. And that's what we're going to talk about. The headline of this 2025 New Year Beard and Balls Bundle. Now, if you don't have balls, you can still get this stuff, by the way. It's still great for shaving your privates, whether you have or do not have, the stuff that hangs down there. You get the idea. Look, it's the beard and bald bundle. It's the beard hedger and the lawnmower 5.0 Ultra. First of all, I can't grow a great beard. If you're watching on YouTube, you can probably see that. But if you want to tackle your winter beard, the beard hedger has a titanium coated T-blade that lets you start the year strong. You can get clean. You can get neat. You can go to 20 different lengths with the zoom wheel, which is really cool. I got to tell you, the Manscaped products are just real high quality. So if you want products for facial hair and body hair and private's hair, these are the products that I would recommend. You can do it with water. It's waterproof design, so it's got you covered. It's got an LED light and 60 minutes of runtime. The Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra, skin-safe blade heads. Okay, it's got the LED light. It is also waterproof. I always do that kind of shaving in the shower because that cleans it up nice and easy for you. They say cuts through the New Year's forest with ease. Is there a New Year's forest? Aren't forests just forests? Like the same. Anyway, it does that. Point is, great products. Join the 11 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped and revamp your grooming routine with the Beard and Balls bundle. Get 20% off free shipping with code ArsenalVision at manscaped.com. 20% off free shipping with code ArsenalVision at manscaped.com. And NordVPN. This is the easy one. I don't even have to tell you anything about this. NordVPN sells itself. All I need to tell you basically is please use our promo code so we get some credit when you do it. And the promo code, easily enough, is ArsenalVision. It's nordvpn.com/ArsenalVision to get a huge discount off your NordVPN plan, 4 additional months on top, completely risk-free. Look, you put an app on your computer, on your iPad, on your phone. I was actually just talking to my friend Darren about this the other day. He's saying, I want to be able to watch the match of the day of the match videos, and that's geo-locked, right? Just get Nord. You click, you browse in the area you want to browse, and you can watch the things you want to watch. When I go over to the UK, I can still watch my Peacock subscription, so I can see the football that's blacked out in the UK. It's just great. It has threat protection. So if you're going on some dodgy streams, you're covered there. You can sign up for streaming services in foreign countries where they cost less, save yourself a lot of money there. NordVPN.com/ArsenalVision. Get a huge discount off your NordVPN plan, 4 additional months on top, completely risk-free, 30-day money-back guarantee. NordVPN.com/ArsenalVision. Do down, Clive. Said enough of that.
Indeed.
Did it. Clive,
Yes,
I want to talk to you about how you shave your privates from it. No, I'm kidding. We can come back to that later. Real quick, Jesus, like there are certain things that happen in a season where you just throw your hands up and say, like, I don't know what to tell you. This is heartbreaking. This is a player who we thought was maybe done, who had started to show glimpses of maybe rediscovering some of the things we expect him to do and be able to add to us. And in the absence of Saka, starting to write Jesus's name in on the right wing there and say this could work. And for a player who is in the prime of his career, who maybe felt himself it was getting back on track, and who knows, maybe Arsenal were going to look to sell him to someplace where he could be their big new signing and he could get a fresh start. Now, I mean, people are saying the mechanism of injury looks like an ACL. I want to ask you first, I will give you my view. I think he does the injury on the landing that sees him leave on a stretcher. I think that's when he does it. There was an earlier injury, I think involving Bruno Fernandes, where he went down and it looked like he was rubbing his knee. Do you think this was a case of he should have come off when he first felt it? I mean, you're not a doctor. You don't know. Do you have any thoughts just on that aspect of it?
No, I didn't even see the first one. Okay. It wasn't a major incident when I was watching. And second one, it sort of like, I'm looking at it thinking, oh, is that Timber? That's what I thought, because the area of the pitch he was in. I'm looking around and saying, who is it? It's Jesus. And it sort of happened. It happened off ball, didn't it, mate? Really, just off ball. He sort of led to a collision. He doesn't look good, and this is an absolute disaster for the player in particular, first and foremost, but for the club, because we have the player now. That's a 25 million pound issue right there. We have the player. We can't move on. We can't evolve. He's on our books, regulation wise. And so I won't say it's going to affect what we do next, but it's going to have an impact on what we do next. And we have a duty of care to that player. We have to look after him. Right? So this is a disaster moment, really. A disaster moment. We can't say he's overplayed. From the look at his minutes for the season, this is just a disaster. And it's indicative of the year. There are things that we hold ourselves accountable for. There are things that are just happening to us. And it's head-shaking stuff, mate, to watch that happen, and I don't know, I feel for him. I don't know where we go from here now, but we've got to do something to get everyone back into the same room.
Well, this is the thing.
Key.
Jesus is our backup striker. He's our backup right winger.
Yeah.
Might even be our backup left winger.
Yeah.
We are now without Saka, our starting right winger, Jesus, our backup right winger, Ethan Nwaneri, our emergency right winger, and all we have is Sterling.
Yeah.
By losing Ethan, we've also lost any kind of Odegaard cover that gives us anything similar to what he gives us. It means now that we really are going to start to feel committed more to Merino because Kai can't drop back into the 8 because we don't really have anyone to play through the middle unless we want to start trying like a Martinelli there or something, who, by the way, in the first half, I thought took up some interesting central locations. We've seen some
What's your view on the Martinelli game? Because I've got a positive view. But I'm asking myself, am I positive because he was the most likely? Do you see what I mean? Rather than the actual actions?
I would say this. I know we had the miss the other day. I think consecutive games now we've seen Martinelli start really well and show some things that I think were really exciting and then fade. I thought in this game he had a good first half and a first half where we weren't particularly good. And then I think he started to increasingly get his head down, just look to get his crosses off. Some of them were good, by the way, but I just think he didn't vary his game much. And like there was one moment where he was 1v1 against Garnacho and Garnacho took the ball off him and it didn't look great. And like, I just think...
I'll tell you, shall I tell you what I saw in it? Okay, because I saw a lot of that coming towards me. I thought he did some really good stuff on the outside. Left foot crosses were decent.
Yeah.
I was in that mode. And you can say, well, Clive, why are we crossing it? I take that. But I was in that mode. He was taking on Ahmad, he taking on Garnett. He was going around them at will. We weren't getting on the end of it. They were clearing in the middle, goalkeeper cleared out, etc. I thought his performance was positive. I thought he was engaged. I thought he was engaged in the entire game. And again, when it comes down to it, let's be honest, when it comes down to it, we should have attacking substitutions we can bring on to alleviate some of the fatigue that was showing in our front men. As we went into extra time, we weren't able to execute on the fact with the one game advantage because the players that we had were starting to fatigue out, right? And that's the issue. Regardless of what you think we need to be doing, we need to add attacking depth because the game is not about your front three that you pick and you play them for 120 minutes. That's not what it's about. It's about keeping them fresh. And the two players that Manchester United had in that centre forward, for example, in Xerxes and Højlund, they were able to share the game. And I thought Xerxes had an impact towards the end of that game physically because he was fresher and he grew into the game and he had an impact. We were not able to make those changes due to the injury and due to the fact we haven't got enough attacking talent on the bench. And so Martinelli did fine by me, but I'm thinking, mate, you just done extra time and we got Spurs on Wednesday and you have to play. And that's where my head's at, and that's a real concern.
Yeah, like I'm not going to kill Martinelli for this performance. I think there were good moments in it, and then there were other things that didn't work. I think another performance that seems to be dividing opinion. I've seen some frustration with Sterling. I actually thought Sterling gave us back some of the combination play on the right that we lost without Saka, where it looked like there was a little more stuff happening 1-2. I mean, every time he gave it to Odegaard, he made that really. The thing good wingers do, right? He gives the pass and shows with his body what he's going to do so Odegaard knows where he's going. Leans off the edge of the last man, makes a sharp angled run in. Look, he's Sterling at the end of his career. Who knows how motivated? So yeah, he wasn't amazing, but I thought he gave us back a little bit of right side combination play.
He again, a thirsty man by the well. He gave us a lot of attacking play because he started to beat people. Right, so he started to challenge people, and to be honest, I think they brought on Malacia. Did they brought on Malacia late on, who is better suited to a Sterling? Do you see what I mean? So Sterling had a patch of play which was really positive and really aggressive. He was just taking people on, moving people around, and they were rocking. They brought on Malacia, and I felt he handled him better. He got closer to him and won more challenges, and just sort of saw him off towards the end of the game. Do you see what I mean? And of course, we don't know. Sterling hasn't played much, so I'm not sure his energy levels. But I thought Sterling brought something. It was a reminder what we work, how we normally work, punching, beating people, 1-2 secondary movements into the box. That's what we do. He's the closest to it, and maybe that's not a positive, Elliot. Do you see? Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
Maybe that's not a positive.
So, I think there was one other thing that I wanted to cover just in the game. A few things, but one is after the penalty is after the ref points to the spot, there's a bust up. and it looks like Ugarte headbutts someone, I think maybe Gabriel. There's a screenshot going around of Kai with his hand around Ugarte's throat, I think. You have any thoughts on that moment? I mean, obviously, with the benefit of VAR, there could have been a red card there or a couple of red cards. Or are you sort of happy to see that just be a little bit of warning
that's
and
the
nothing
game.
done?
They walked into our house and they did their bit. When we had the penalty, they did their bit to get into our heads, right? They caused a kerfuffle with the referee. They got into our heads. There's a bit of fisticuffs, a bit of physicality. And, mate, that's the game. That is part of sport. And we had a chance to stick it in their net and send them home. And we didn't. Right? So I'm not looking at retrospective bans. I don't give a monkeys. We let them come into our house and do that and have a time of their lives. We need to do our jobs first before we start bleating about someone else getting a red card.
I will say, again, I thought the calls largely went for us. Dallow's second yellow, it's a stupid challenge on a yellow. I think if it were reversed and say, do you need to send a guy off for that? They're like that. Again, that's an example of, I don't think it has to be a second yellow. But we got it.
I will say they were, again, I should know this, so for bringing this up. I will say there was lots of fouls from them, like counter type, stopping counter attack fouls. And they were quite aggressive in the contact. And that's part of the game. Referees up there to manage it. Right? And so he started to give out cards. And so they walked into that. They were trying to get close to us. They were trying to show they were there for the fight. And they walked into that. And that's the risk that they took for their aggressive nature of how they went about attacking us. They were aggressive against Liverpool as well, particularly at centre-backs areas. And this is going to be part of their new identity, without a doubt. And he went over the top. And they suffered for it. But if anything, it ended up being a game state that Maguire and De Ligt liked. Right? So I'm not sure by how much it benefited us, really, apart from those few minutes just after the red card and the penalty. I thought we showed a lot of aggression in the first few minutes, but it sort of faded away.
Yeah. And again, for anybody that's screaming this at their listening device, and I said this at the beginning, right? Sometimes what you want in these hard moments is to hear your thoughts echoed back to you coming out of someone else's mouth. Like I do get that there were the chances to win this game. And Mikel was very clear. You said, with the chances we created, the very, very big chances, we should have won this game many times over. And I don't necessarily disagree. I do think, I take notes as I'm watching. And when we went down 1-0, then we started to create some stuff. And I even took a note. I said, oh, now we're playing.
Yeah,
it did feel a little like we waited to fall behind to inject some urgency into our play, especially in the final third. And this goes back to my point from the beginning. I think this is a team that knows it can dominate, knows it can control, but does not have a clear sense of how it's going to get goals right now, that feels unsure of itself. And so we are comfortable with our control. We don't push that extra bit in the final third, take that extra risk. No one is quite taking on the responsibility, which leads me to Odegaard. Odegaard did take on the responsibility of taking the penalty. He missed. It's unfortunate. He did take on the responsibility in the penalty shootout, and he did make his penalty, unlike Kai, unfortunately. He had 10 chances created, worth 2.0 expected goals per Opta. Martin Odegaard created 10 chances, had an expected assist total of 2 against Manchester United, both the most by a Premier League player in any game this season. It's a weird one because I found myself frustrated by Odegaard. In fact, I think I gave him a stock falling in the instant reaction. I think that there were times when he was not playing on instinct enough. He was not quick enough to release. When he didn't get the ball out of his feet, I think he only had 2 shots in this game, despite his 116 touches. But he did create the chances that could have won the game a couple of times over. It's harsh. I don't see Odegaard quite at the level right now. He did go down with an ankle thing in this game, by the way, which I was really worried about. He got up and he played through it. I think he's just a little bit less. Technically, his level just doesn't seem to be as high as I'm used to from him. And when Mikel recently, I thought this was really interesting. He was asked about Odegaard's goal scoring, and he said, 15 goals is not a reasonable expectation for a midfielder. That basically, he said that's not something we can expect from our midfield every season. But interestingly, someone pointed out to me in the Discord, he had a very different story about Emil Smith-Rowe when he was breaking through, and he said he wants to play 10 for Arsenal. 15 goals and 10 assists a season should be the goal. So I thought that was very interesting. And I get it. He's protecting his captain a little bit right now, but I think I find myself thinking we still need more from Odegaard, and certainly I think maybe more goal scoring in particular. What do you think of this performance? Because I accept that he could very much have been the hero on another day.
it's about balance, isn't it? When you're not getting your physicality and ball striking from your forwards, your eyes go back. You go back one line, and you go back to that guy and say, could he have more shots? We're trying to solve things in our mind, right? It's natural. I'm saying the same thing. Sometimes when he jinks inside and he clips it to the back post, I'm thinking, can you go another step and get a shot off? That's what I'm thinking, you know? Am I prepared to say he's shot shy and should be out of the club? No, I'm not prepared to say that. I'm just saying that I've read it. I've read it.
Well, you can read a lot of things.
Yeah, and I'm not prepared to say that because if Declan Rice heads that chance in, we're all saying, wow, how do you see that pass? Do you see what I mean? And so we need to just do our work as a group. There was one moment in the game, Elliot, where there was a few groans when he was driving out of defence and he sort of turned on himself. He could have gone to the right, but he did a complete 360 and then went to the right. By then, the block was in place again. And you say to yourself,
I got to stop you though. I got to stop you just for a second because that clip has been making the rounds on social media too. And the thing that does my head in, he drives out of defense. Declan Rice stays stock still for a lateral ball instead of getting one line up where he can play the diagonal. And when Odegaard drives through before he does that pirouette, it is currently a 3-on-7. Okay? There's no the speed and directness and urgency of the Arsenal players to get into positions for a progressive pass or a ball that he can play that's hurtful. I don't see it being there. So while I am more than willing to, as I said, I gave him a stock falling, criticize some of Odegaard's decision-making or final third contribution, despite the data very clearly saying there was plenty of it. I think that was an unfair example and a better example actually of how Arsenal, unlike maybe a Liverpool, don't have the players up in positions that when we regain possession, we are in a position to really create numerical advantages as often as we might need to.
Yeah, so I'm not going to argue on that one. I think it caused a few groans in the crowd without us having the chance to see it all again. And I think that's down to the fact that I think people are aware that we're not as direct as, say, Liverpool are.
Yeah.
And they're looking for direct forward movement. So when someone turns away from forward movement, you're just going to get a natural reaction. It wasn't like people started booing. It's like a groan. And we still got the ball and it's gone 2 seconds later. So it was sort of indicative, really, of how we are. I look at Odegaard and he reminds me when he had the hip injury last year. I mean, we had a hip injury. He was on the pitch, but he wasn't quite there, you know. But I actually thought in this game he was brighter. And if you ask me, I felt this was going to be a struggle game for some reason anyway, because I was just doomy about it. But the person that made me think we might do it was him. It was him. I thought he looked brighter than he did against Newcastle. He was moving across the ground better. He was looking for the ball in more areas. And he was really trying to push the team forward. And so I thought, you know what? He's back. Good. At last. We'll start to see some offensive movements here now because I thought against Newcastle we didn't really show. He didn't really show. We didn't really show. He looked healthier, you know, and so I think he's going to come back, and he needs to come back because a lot is on him, and that is maybe this is a debate, Elliot. This is a debate of how we burden 4 or 5 in the team, who really burden them. We burden our centre backs, we burden Saka, and we burden Odegaard. And if they're not there or not at it, I always look to the others and say, who's going to step up on their behalf? And that is the mentality question that we have. Who's going to step up when people are either not there or not at their best? You know? And at this moment in time, I can't get after 49 shots in 2 games. We need to step up. You know?
Yeah.
It's on us. It's on us. It really is on us. And it's a very simple equation. It's on us. We can question the squad building. Absolutely, that's our right as fans. Some people like this player, some people don't like this player. Some people think that player deserves to play in that position. That's what fans do, right? That's what we do as part of the debate around the game. But when it comes down to it, we are dominating almost every game we play in, and that dominance is not leading to what it should lead to. And that is on us. And the way Mikel talks about football, he lives in these fine detail worlds. You can tell that this is where he's living. He's looking at the numbers, he's looking at the data, and he's thinking, we're close to exploding here. Fans are thinking, I'm close to exploding as I'm walking out of the stadium. I'm close to exploding. Oh, we're close to exploding. And he's in the fine details, even where, to him, talking about the ball in the last game was just normal. That's where he lives. He lives in the details of making sure execution is right. We don't live in that world. We don't live in that world. We live in a different world. We have a different perspective in the main. But the two need to conjoin, right? They need to get closer. And at this moment in time, it's the first time in a long time, Elliot, I can feel the disunity that I felt, maybe online was starting to get to me, so I stopped looking at it. There was like silence around the stadium, just real silence, and grumpiness. If people in other areas where there was more aggression, that's their experience. It wasn't my experience, but there was just silence, and everyone had the ump. With that, how we threw that away. And we have now a few days of taking it in the wider world, taking it. We have to take it. We have to take the questions that are being asked for us. We're being questioned top to bottom by people who have just been waiting to have a chip at this club, right? We're being questioned. And how we react to this moment is really important. I mean, how we react as a fan base is really important. But we look a little bit more divided than we have to a long time. Last time I felt like this was probably, remember the Burnley at home game when we lost when Aubameyang scored an own goal? And I thought, crikey, they've scored a goal. They've had a shot on target and they've lost the game at home. I felt pretty low that night. And this one felt low because, again, the disunity is starting to come back. And that's not something that I look forward to.
I mean, it sounds impossible, but in our last two games, we've lost them both. And we've conceded 3 goals. We've scored 1. In that time, we outshot our opponents 49-14. Now, that's not me saying I think we're great, but there's just another world where these are 3-1, 3-2 victories or 4-2 or any. But the problem is, and I've said this a million times on the pod, when you fail in a way no one expects, you get forgiveness. When you fail in a way people feel they could have predicted, you don't get forgiveness. And what I mean is, if I told you at the end of the transfer window, when it closed, Arsenal are not going to achieve their goals this season, and a big reason why is they will not have the goal scoring they need in the forward line. People would say, that's exactly how I'd expect us to fail this season based on where we sit. Now, you didn't expect Saka and Ethan and Jesus and Tomiyasu, well, maybe Tomiyasu and Calafiori and Ben White. I mean, no one's talking about Ben White. Ben White's a big part of what we do on the right. I love Timber. He's being overburdened right now. Ben White had knee surgery. No one's even mentioning it.
And Timber might have a hamstring, by the way. So
from the latest update is both Timber and Jorginho probably okay.
Okay, that's good.
Which is encouraging because we need him. But now, okay in time for Wednesday? We'll see. I guess what I'm saying is, you can't point to outshooting your opponents 49-14 and not scoring the goals you need without acknowledging that may have to do with the people trying to score the goals, right? And who you have at your disposal. I do think I almost want to interview a Liverpool fan. Why would I want to do a thing like that? Because they had their 92-point season. And the next season they had an injury crisis and they had 67 points and finished 5th. No team achieves 92 points and thinks they're going to finish 5th the next season. No team. And I want to ask, was there panic in the fan base? Was there manager out talk in the fan base? Was there, we need to get rid of all these players, they're shit, and get new players? Because there's a part of me that worries that we are all overlooking the obvious reason this season is not going well in the search, the scrabble for an explanation that is more fulfilling. That when we can assign responsibility to something other than bad fortune, that makes us feel better. So there's a part of me that thinks no one wants to just say, it's just injuries. This season is a washout. We'll just have to go again next season. No one wants that. It's not rewarding. You can't assign blame. You can't point to ways we could have avoided it. And nobody likes to think their life and their success is down to things they have no control over. So a part of me thinks that. But another part of me does think, yeah, without Saka, we were never going to be at our ceiling outcome. With the injuries we've had, we're never going to be at our ceiling outcome. But there were clear moves everybody felt we needed to make. We didn't really make them. And we've been punished because the injuries we've suffered have further exacerbated the failures. So that leads me to the obvious question, Clive, which is simply this January window. I do not believe that buying a bad player ever makes you a better team.
Yep.
So I don't think we should buy a bad player. There is a sort of defense of the club that goes like this. Of course, we want great attackers. Everybody wants great attackers. They're not out there. We can't get the deals done. We're trying. I am sympathetic to that only to a point because the buck stopped somewhere. Someone's job is to find the attacker and buy him. I get it's hard. I get it. Just because it's hard doesn't mean you don't have to do it. And you're going to have to find someone. You're going to have to make it happen. Clive,
Yeah.
I don't think you make a January signing that you don't want. But I also think this. Maybe there's the star guy out there. Maybe the star guy is Nico Williams, or maybe it's Bradley Barcola, or maybe it's Sesko. I don't know who it is. It's someone. Fine. And maybe that guy can only be gotten in the summer. There's another Leo type signing. There's a Diogo Jota type signing, right? There's a player who adds value in the area we need, who can come in and help us, who surely we can go get. I don't know who it is. Are you prepared to say it has to happen? Because with this Jesus injury now, the knock-on effect now is more Sterling playing every 3 days. More players getting run into the ground and being even less clinical because they don't have the energy in the final third. So I am sort of the opinion that this is not optional at this point.
Yeah, well, Sterling was a 6 man out of 6. Now he's up to 4, maybe even 3. Right?
Yeah.
So, and that wasn't really the signing that we hoped for, right? So, yeah, look, it's not the best analysis to say we need to do something for many different reasons. I'm not sure who it is, Elliot, and I'm not sure who's going to sign, who is in charge of that. Just think about it. We lost our sporting director this year. And again, what's the story there? What's the story? What's happening there? So, and so we need to show organizational alignment, and we need to, because we've got an emergency situation. We're carrying a risk in the squad. We're carrying a risk for the season. So how can we cover it? Do we need to get creative? Do we need to let people go to get people in? Whatever we need to do, we need to do it, right? Because there's a number of left backs running up and down that sideline warming up yesterday. They're not getting a chance to play. Do we need to move some people out to create wage room for people to come in, right? And this is the challenge that you have, right? So I keep saying this is the job. This is the job. It's never. I was walking back out yesterday, and someone shouted to me, "Clive, we need a striker now, don't we?" And I just shouted back, "We need 2." Right? That's what it feels like. And that's it. That's where my head was. We need 2, but it's not Football Manager. We have to wait and see. And I've got lots of names flying around my head, but I'm not sure what we're going to do. And I want it, more importantly, I want it to be an environment where I've always felt that people want to come. I was walking out the ground yesterday, I'm thinking, man, I don't want to stay away from us at the moment. It's a little bit toxic. It's a bit hot. It's a bit hot. Would you want to come in with all that burden on your shoulders? No. So I think it just needs to calm down a little bit. We just need to calm down. Yeah, we got done on penalties at home. We got done by Newcastle at home. The problems are there. They're clear and easy to see. The same people that some people are killing, we need them to put on their shorts on Wednesday night, right? And that's really important to me. That's really important to many people. I can't have Spurs dancing around our stadium. That can't happen. That just cannot happen.
No.
And so we need to lift these people up, mate. Do you know what I mean? Lift them up big time, not denigrate them, because we ain't getting someone in by Wednesday. So it's really a really important moment of the season.
Ironically, Spurs sent to extra time at Tamworth. So
that would have been the story. That would have been the story, and that would have been the biggest story of all, but we've now taken the headlines from them, haven't we? Completely.
And again, I don't want to lean into the poor us, unlucky us thing, right? The worst United in 30 years plays with 10 men at the Emirates. We have to win that. But at the same time, I'm watching, City put 8 past non-league opposition and Spurs get past non-league opposition and Liverpool play Accrington Stanley. And there is a world where we draw Tamworth at the Emirates and we're playing a fully rotated side and we're rested. It just, everything that can make this season tougher is happening. And again, I am not excusing the performance. I will say this. The one thing that does give me a bit of hope is I still don't see anyone outplay us. All right. War a trophy, as the kids say, but nobody outplays us. We outshoot, we outpossess, we dominate teams. We're not getting it done. And that's not an excuse, but here's why I'm bringing that up. So Derby next. The one thing we know about Spurs is they will not camp. They will not bunker. They will not sit. United came to the Emirates and had absolutely no intention of playing. They just didn't play at all, really. Fair enough, by the way. They're through and we're not. But my point is, and Newcastle, same thing, 11 men behind the ball, 2 banks of 5 once they had a lead.
Yeah.
But Spurs aren't going to do that. And this is both exciting and scary because it's going to test the last thing I think about us, which is we dominate teams. Well, here's a team that's going to come play us. They're going to come try to give us a match. Is that going to give us the space to show our quality and destroy them and score goals and embarrass them with our superior football? Or is this going to chip away a little further at the armor that I have intellectually around this project where I say, well, we still dominate teams? This is a big one. Now, the good news is I'm not an every week match going fan like you, Clive, but the one thing I know is I think the Emirates in general, even if it's not always the most positive, is hugely positive when Spurs rock up and stays behind this team. They understand it's a derby. They hate, let's put it this way, they hate Spurs. We hate Spurs more than we are frustrated with Arsenal. And so I do think that will create, at least at the beginning, a very big atmosphere. And I do think that this is the kind of opposition that will really give us the potential to maybe show our football a bit. People are going to be watching this one carefully, either neutral, so to speak, because we're going to get an opponent who's going to come try to play. And to be fair, opponents that have tried to play us have gotten smacked. They've gotten smacked. So how do you think about the derby in the context of a challenge different from the one we've faced recently, and how we'll react to that?
Yeah, well, in my lowest moments last night, I just went back to Lisbon and the team that we picked against Lisbon. I looked at that team. I thought it was perfectly balanced. We stuck 5 in their net, and it was just brilliant. Right, so and that team isn't here at the moment, and it's not in the same level of confidence. Right, so but Lisbon tried to play us, and we played them off the park. Right, they left us spacing behind, etc., etc. But again, the main man, Bukayo Saka, broke open that game like he always does, and that gives us a confidence. At 2-0, we got a set piece goal, and made it 3 before half time, and we went away and won the game 5. This is what we do when it's all going well. Right, so a few weeks later, we're sitting here wanting to throw everybody in the bin. Right, so if they do come and play us, Elliot, we're asking people to execute who are struggling to execute right now, to take advantage of the spaces that we may have. They're going to turn up with an 18-year-old centre back in Archie Gray and drag us in at the back. And I don't care. We have to do our job. They say pressure is a privilege. Well, the pressure is a privilege, and it's right here, right now. And there is no excuses for it. Right? So I'm hoping that everyone will have got through their grief, as I'm getting through mine, get through their grief to make sure they bring their best for Wednesday night. I'm sure we will, as you say. But it can repair a lot if we play well, but it still doesn't take away the things we've spoken about around squad building, about the risks we took in the summer. I don't think those risks have played out well. We haven't evolved our squad attacking-wise enough to create a new face for other people. We're potentially coaching to a flat line. We're coaching maybe to a point where our talent can't take us any further. So in some cases, and we need to have a look. That's it. We need to have a look. But in the short term, we need to make sure we repair the confidence of people who are maybe dipping in confidence. When Havertz walked off that pitch last night, mate, he looked devastated. Right, he looked broken. He looked devastated.
Straight down the tunnel.
I thought that guy had gone. The pillow feet guy looked afraid of his own shadow. I thought that guy had gone. He's going to come back, And again, I wasn't in my pre-season plan. I thought, well, he's going to carry on. We just find him as a centre forward, and he'll do fine. And there were moments there where he smashed one against Southampton. I thought that's the right decision. When he aggressively took one for the edge of the area, he's going for a dip, and but let's hope he comes out of it, right? And not just him. Martinelli's trying to come out of it. I can see the effort in his eyes. I can see it. Trossard looks a bit flat to me. Odegaard's on his way back. We need to support these guys because the Spurs are coming, right? And they cannot walk out of there. They can't walk out of there.
No. I would say this, by the way. I know there's some frustration at Raya for how he performed in the penalty shootout, and he did some really wacky shit I've never seen before. But I'll just put it like this. He's been a penalty hero for us already this season, and was a penalty hero for us last season against Porto.
Yeah.
And he's been one of our players of this season. So, I just don't care. I very rarely blame keepers for not saving penalties.
Yeah.
So, what he did was ridiculous, and I don't understand it. And I'm sure he's going to have a look at the video and not love it himself.
I'm not worried about Raya. He's going early, mate. He's going early.
Doesn't even begin to explain what he's doing.
And it's Harry Kane that said something funny enough when he scored against him against was it Bayern? I think he was. He scored a penalty against for Bayern, and he says, our analysis says he goes early. So I introduced a starter step into my, and And if they know it, other analysts know it. So he needs to have a look at what's going on there. I'm not saying that's going to be the judgment of his whole career, because he made an unbelievable save for Xerxes, but down by the near post, right?
Yeah,
that should go in.
He's been one of our players of the season. Not worried about it.
But he needs to have a look at that again, because penalties are important, very important.
They are, but like in the Champions League last season, when it felt like the whole thing kind of hinged on it, we got through a penalty shootout with Raya. So, and he save a penalty against, was it PS? Who was it?
Atalanta.
Yeah, the 0-0 and to start look, it is sort of unfathomable, but it does put context into it. Liverpool go to Forest, a team that's already beaten them once this season. There is a potential that if we win the derby, we are 3 points back of Liverpool. I know they have a game in hand.
Yeah.
And we are third in the table in the Champions League. Manchester City have an injury crisis. They're 6th in the Premier League and 22nd in the Champions League. None of this is to say our summer was okay, or we're playing okay, or everything's great and you should just be happy. It is a bit of context to say, so it's just one of these weird types of seasons where we're all very connected to what the problems are, what the shortcomings are, what the challenges are. And yet, whether it's in the Champions League or the league itself, there are still things there to fight for and protect and be hopeful for, which is more reason why the club should go potentially do something right now if they want those things to continue to have a life. I mean, there have been eras where we'd get knocked out of the League Cup and the FA Cup, and that was season over. We're not in one of those eras right now, but if we want to protect what is still there to fight for, there's some work that needs to be done. I'll give you the last word on the derby, Clive. Anything in particular about the lineup or about what you do, or is it really just a case now of play the available players?
Yeah, I'm just looking to see the health report, really, and see us go through the grieving process of coming out of the FA Cup to Manchester United at home, and then focus on Spurs, which is what we need to do. I think this result has maybe uncovered some underlying feelings around Arsenal Football Club and what they're doing. They're giving the outside world an opportunity to give us a right good kicking. And really, it's for me that people don't really like the manager, and I include internally and externally. Well, I mean internally in the Arsenal world and externally in the outside world. We're there for a kicking, right? So, yeah, this is where we are right now. Things can change very, very quickly, and they really need to before we spiral. But this is the time for big people to stand up and say, no, we're not accepting this. This is how we're going to respond. This is how we deal with pressure. This is how we deal with adversity. And we're going to bring our best on Wednesday night. And that's what I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, I mean, as bad as it feels, there are two clubs in the world that can say they're looking down at Arsenal in a table. Liverpool and Barcelona. Those are the only two teams in the world that crisis club Arsenal are below right now. Having said that, the direction of travel could get real worrying real fast. So there's a balance to be struck there. I think for the derby, it is a case of we've been good when teams have wanted to play football against us.
Yeah.
And I think we can really right the ship here because of that.
Yeah, it can. This time last year, we were able to reinvent ourselves and re-energize ourselves.
Good point.
Find a new balance. We found Jorginho in midfield. We found your mate Kivior at left back. We solved that situation. We moved Guy up front, and we found a balance. And we went on a run. My worry this year, Elliot, and I've said it before, and I'll say it again, the volume of games doesn't allow us time to refresh. But also, I cannot think of a way we're going to reinvent offensively unless we go externally. So that ability to reinvent ourselves and re-energize ourselves is no longer an internal solution, in my opinion. It's an external one. And I'm always one to look internal and see what we can do, move people around. We don't have the profiles to do it. So we have to go externally.
Yeah, well said. I think we can leave it there. Big game, obviously, on Wednesday. We'll have a patron pod for you tomorrow. We'll have an instant reaction on Wednesday. We'll have a main pod on Thursday. And we'll have this new concept where it'll be interactive as well on Friday. So a lot of stuff there. If you do want to try Patreon, I realize a lot of people right now are like, I'd like less Arsenal content. But if you do want it, you can use code AVP, all caps. And it's $2.50 for the first month to give it a try. So just a way to say, if you want to try that, we'd like to help make that as accessible as possible. Otherwise, you can sign up on Apple as well. But the most important thing is that Arsenal go win the derby, and then we'll all be feeling a lot better. Then Unai Emery comes to the Emirates. Again, another chance to remind ourselves there's things to fight for this season. I will say this, and I told myself I wasn't going to say this on the pod, but I'm going to say it. If ever there was a season where we did not need the domestic cups, it might be this one. I would much, much, much rather we have beaten Newcastle and beaten United, just so we're clear. But if we can right the ship, and if we can maybe even make a signing, there is still a world where we're looking back in April or May, fighting for big things, saying maybe being out of domestic cups was a necessary step to get to where we are. But the club and the players have to make that reality. I acknowledge that. So maybe we can get there. All right. Thanks, Clive.
Thank you very much.
My name's Elliot Smith, the Black Man's Radio Ink Gunner. We love you. And we will talk to you after Arsenal 10, Spurs 0.